Seduction doesn't always start with roses and poetry. Sometimes it begins with silence, the mysterious glance, or the compelling stillness of someone who makes you lean in, only to find they've already taken a step back. That, my friends, is the quiet paradox of what draws avoidant partners. And today, in this curious little dive we call What Attracts Partners with Avoidant Attachment, we'll explore what pulls them in, what sends them fleeing, and what, quite possibly, they're hoping you never realize about the whole dance. Let me begin with a story, true, albeit slightly embellished for your entertainment. Years ago, I had a friend. Let's call him Henry. Henry was a man of fine taste and impeccable withdrawal. Charming, clever, dressed like he might dine with the Queen and ghost you by dessert. And Henry, dear Henry, had a type. He was drawn to women who shimmered. You know the type. Radiant, expressive, full of dreams and drama, and always just on the edge of crying or singing or storming out of the room for theatrical emphasis. He was drawn to the flame, even as he wrapped himself in asbestos gloves. But here's the thing. Henry wasn't playing games. Not really. He wasn't cruel. He was terrified. You see, avoidantly attached people, those lovely rolling stones as some call them, they do want connection. Deeply, desperately even. But like someone burned by boiling water, they now flinch at the warmth they crave. They've learned, long ago in quiet rooms with distracted parents or volatile caretakers, that closeness is a setup. Intimacy equals entrapment. Or worse, disappointment. And so, what do? They fall for people who make feeling feel possible again. People who pulse with vitality, with emotion, with a kind of bold hopefulness they themselves have buried under years of self-protection. But, and here's the tragic turn, they don't fall in love with you per se. They fall in love with the role you play in their fantasy. Because for an avoidant, the fantasy is everything. It's their internal lighthouse, the place they gaze at from afar. And the moment reality begins to knock on the door, when you, God forbid, start to expect something back, or worse, show them the depths of your own vulnerability, they feel cornered. Not by you, mind you, but by the memory of every time love once let them down. So what attracts them? The performance. Let's be clear, this is not conscious manipulation. It's ancient choreography. When an avoidant meets someone with an anxious style, someone I might fondly call an open heart, there's an immediate energetic harmony. Like opposites on a battery, they charge each other. The anxious person senses that something in this avoidant is special, elusive, sacred even, like a wound that begs healing. And the avoidant senses that this open heart sees something in them, something they dare not believe exists. They feel seen, momentarily, wanted, revered. And that feels like flying, until it feels like falling. Now the open heart begins to offer, to anticipate, to give without asking. They begin, often without knowing, to bend around the needs of the avoidant, to become a mirror for their fantasy. And the avoidant feels that pull, not just of love but of expectation. And that, my friends, is where it all starts to unravel. Because to the avoidant, expectation feels like demand. And demand? Well, demand is the shadow of abandonment. It's the echo of the childhood moment when love became a currency they could never afford. So they pull away. They disappear. Not to punish you, but to survive. They tell themselves things like, it's moving too fast, or they're too emotional, or I need space. And perhaps they do. But what they're really doing is fighting their own biology, the part of them that wants love but doesn't trust it. So let's ask, what's really attractive to an avoidant? Stillness, mystery, self-possession. Someone who offers warmth but doesn't force closeness. Someone who's interested but not consumed. Now, this is not a game. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being firmly rooted in yourself. Because the moment you abandon your center to chase them, the dynamic shifts. The avoidant runs, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your movement towards them feels like pressure. And pressure, to them, is the prelude to pain. Let me put it another way. Imagine love as a volume knob. The anxious person cranks it to 11. Loud, expressive, all in. The avoidant? They might be sitting quietly at 3. It's not that they don't feel. It's that their wiring can't yet handle the decibels. And this mismatch creates suffering. Not because one is better than the other, but because they're tuned to different frequencies. But here's the hope. Avoidance can change. They can learn, through safety and consistency, to trust again, to speak, to stay. But they must choose that. And you cannot make that choice for them. No amount of tenderness, texting, or therapeutic language will force that door open. So if you're attracting avoidance, pause. Ask yourself, what energy am I putting out? Am I chasing the fantasy of healing someone else to avoid healing myself? Because more often than not, the avoidant is attracted to someone who will perform love. But a secure, grounded partner, someone who simply is love, that scares them more than anything. Why? Because that partner demands nothing but presence. And presence is precisely what they've spent years avoiding. So the question is not how to attract an avoidant. The question is, why do you want to? If the answer is, because I see their pain and want to help, well, that's noble. But you mustn't become the emotional nurse to someone who hasn't chosen recovery. If the answer is, because I love them, then you must also ask, can I love myself enough to walk away if they cannot meet me? Because here's the quiet truth. An avoidant may very well love you. They just may not know how to do it without wounding you. So what attracts them? Light, warmth, authenticity. But what holds them is something else entirely. Safety, patience, boundaries, and above all, your unwavering relationship with yourself. Love, at its best, isn't about finding someone to complete you. It's about finding someone with whom your completeness can dance. And if your partner can't, or won't, join the rhythm, then perhaps it's time to change the music.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.